Yeah.
Which brings me to the one thing that I wanted to get to before we leave this, is waterboarding.
Yeah.
And this is something that came up because you were defending, what is her name? Gail?
Gina.
What is her name?
Haspel.
And she is the person that was being
appointed
to lead the CIA.
Yep.
And there was a bunch of people that were saying that she shouldn't be because she advocated torture. And you, to defend her, decided to get waterboarded.
Yeah. We've actually been talking about this for the past hour and a half.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the slow erosion of the human condition, us getting softer and us getting weaker and us getting nerfing the edges and finding the easy outs and the easy solution. The conversation of middle ground, finding a way that we can communicate with people and have a discussion. So we've been having this discussion for the past 90 minutes. And what I have is a bunch of people that are saying what something is, but they don't know what that is. Man, I know what torture is. I've seen it in Africa. I've seen it in South America. I've seen it in the Middle East. I've seen it on I'm pushing 20 trips overseas in a military capacity. A handful of combat deployments, from looking for poachers, human traffickers, drug cartel, counter piracy, the things that I have done. Like, you want to talk about knowing intimately what torture is? I fucking know what torture is. Pouring water on somebody's face is not torture. Okay, if you starve them, if you beat them, if you isolate them, if they're there for, they're only getting, yes, we can start adding things onto it. But the thing that was the most irritating was everybody is just throwing out this, let's talk about morality and this woman is immoral to be in this position. I remember people jumping to their deaths on 9/11 because they didn't want to get burnt alive, right? And then I saw a guy on his knees and have his throat slit open by somebody pulling his hair back and sliding that knife across his throat. That was one of the guys that she interrogated. Now, I'm not saying two wrongs made a right, but she interrogated them to get questions out of them to try to save more Americans. The intent was to try to save more lives. They say, okay, well, if it's not that bad, then why did it work? And this is why. And this is what nobody understands. And it's because they can't understand the difference between the easy way and the hard way. Is because these people that we were waterboarding are cowards. They were pussies. They were impotent little bullies their whole entire lives. If I put you on that waterboard, I could waterboard you for days. You have your moral convictions and you would never change because you believe in what's right and wrong. And that's a great and beautiful thing. They're not you. They are pieces of shit that throw acid on little girls, that fly planes into buildings because it's capitalist. That's who these people are. And they're only tough when they're surrounded by 60, 70 other of their friends. But you take one of them away from that and you put them in a position where they're powerless. And that's what waterboarding is. They're powerless. And they cave and they cower in seconds. Like, I don't need to drive a nail through their hands. I don't need to pull their teeth out. I don't need to take a drill bit and drive it through their fingernails. That's torture. This is us pouring water on a coward's face and they freak out. And people can't understand that because they can't understand what these people are. And they're animals. These aren't beautiful religious people that are trying to do the best thing for their families. These people were the worst of our kind. These were the Nazis of the 1940s. But this is the current version of it in these radical fanatics that are doing anything for any reason to hurt anybody so they can feel better about themselves. And you take them out of that power, you take them out of that control, you take them out of that opportunity where they can be the bully, and they're just shadows of themselves. And then they give you everything that you need. And what you need is an opportunity to save more lives.
Well, there's two things that were discussed about this. One, that your situation that you were in was not in any way similar to the situation they were in because you were doing it with your friends. You knew you were going to be okay. You willingly did this. The whole process was very controlled. You weren't being held by people who spoke a different language in a country that hates you.
Yep.
It's a situation where you knew you were safe. So you could relax yourself and calm down and tolerate it to the point where you knew that you would be okay.
Yep. And what was the other side?
The other side is, if torture works, isn't that the best form of torture? You're going to be okay. I mean, if torture does work, and I don't know if torture works. I've never been tortured. I've never been around torture. And I know there's a debate in both ways.
Torture doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
So that's not torture.
No.
So you feel like that works, but torture doesn't.
So I think, and I think maybe we're arguing about vernacular and verbs.
Well,
and,
you're forcing someone to do something they don't want to do, and you're freaking them out.
Yeah.
You're doing something physical to them.
So I think we just have to define torture. If it's me doing something to somebody that makes them uncomfortable is torture. I mean, me asking a pointed question at somebody in an interrogation room down at LAPD could be torture.
Right.
You know?
If you smack them in the face, does it become torture?
Yeah. Is that torture?
Right.
Well, what if I hit him with a phone book?
Maybe the problem is the word. Maybe the problem is defining the word. They called it enhanced interrogation techniques. If you're trying to get information out of someone that would save American lives, it seems to me, I mean, I may be ignorant, but waterboarding seems to me to be one of the most humane ways to do it.
I agree with that.
You're not going to do any permanent damage to the person. It's not like what they did to John McCain, when he was a prisoner in Vietnam. And that disturbed the shit out of me when that guy was on Fox News and he called him Songbird McCain because he was saying that, terrorism or torture rather worked on McCain. Like, how could you stoop like that? I mean, how could you do that? I mean, you know what that guy's been through to humiliate him and humiliate yourself by taking that position on television like that. It was so disappointing.
It's about usable information. We're questioning, and if you cross that threshold of torture, where you are doing damage, physical damage, where they'll tell you anything. That's not usable information.
Right.
Like you're going to say that you've been dating your producer for 7 years and secretly, like, I could get you to say anything under the right conditions. That doesn't do any good.
You just want to stop the pain.
Yeah, just anything to make it stop. That's not what was happening here. And when we start talking about morality, if they're saying, okay, if this is a moral act, then okay, does this make me and all of my friends that have done all sorts of in some cases terrible things, are we now immoral people because we did it in the interest of protecting our country and serving our country and providing protection for our freedoms? And I know those are cliche phrases that people grab onto, and I don't want to, but then by extension, throwing and lobbing those accusations at her extend to me and to the things that I've done. And I think I'm a very moral person, and I try to be a good person in every way I can imagine. I'm not perfect. I'm not. But I try. And the politics of bleeding over and misusing words, manipulating everything just so it fits your agenda, but nobody's in the middle of the ground, nobody's agreeing, and nobody has the best interest at heart, and that's the people. Like, the best interest should always be serving the people. And none of them are doing that. They only care about what is going to get them reelected, or what's going to give them more power, or what's going to give them more money from the lobby, or what's going to give them more clout for the next vote, or what's going to give a little handout from the president, or what's, whatever games that happen on the Beltway. That's what, and that was an example of that in the most horrible of ways, because it came down to human lives. It came down to somebody that had been serving their country since the 80s in the best way that she knew how, in the ways that were legal for her to do it. And everybody else just manipulating the narrative to fit their agenda. When I'm just sitting here being like, how about the people and how about freedom? Who's fighting for us? Or are you guys just going to keep bickering about this? So me strapping myself to that board, I'll tell you it's harder. Do what's easy is to lay there strapped and have somebody put water on your face. Do what's hard. When I did to Steven Crowder, watch his hands, where he'd reach up and pull he couldn't take it. He would pull the rag off his face. See how many times I pulled the rag off my face? Not once, right? Every single time I said, no, pour longer. No, use the hose. Use the bucket. Right now you're at a 2. I need you at an 8. No, I need CIA interrogation, friends, right? And I'm sitting there willingly with my hands with the sensation of me drowning as that water's running into my sinuses. Showing that was intentional. I understand people are like, oh no, he was safe. He wasn't even tied down. I did that to demonstrate how a man of resolve can do it effortlessly and how it's not torture. Because I could willingly lay there with my hands free to pull the rag off at any juncture. But I didn't. I just sat there and I asked for more.
I understand that. But I also understand the position that people take where they say, you knew you were safe. And so this is why you had this resolve. You're not in enemy soil, being interrogated by ISIS, being strapped down by them, where you didn't know what was next. If you got through this, what would be next?
Let's say Rachel Maddow from MSNBC, because we agree on so much. If she's like, hey, I want you to come onto my show. I'm going to bring in 5 CIA interrogators, and we're going to do it live. You're in control of nothing. Do you think the result would be any different for me?
It's not the same because you're on a television show and you're Americans are going to do this to you. You haven't been captured. You're not in enemy soil. You're not
so
being spit on by ISIS.
How far do we have to go?
You have to kind of be, I mean, what the person who's really captured is really captured. It's not a game. It's like if you get choked out in the street, you can't tap out, right? If you get in a physical fight to the death with someone and they take your back, you can't tap out. Right? In this situation, you know you can tap out. You know that even if it's CIA interrogating you and they're yelling at you, there's a part of your brain that knows I'm on Rachel Maddow's show. They don't kill soldiers on Rachel Maddow's show.
This is true. So I don't know how I could better have illustrated.
I think you did a fantastic job. I think the problem lies in it's impossible to really recreate it without you being an actual prisoner of war.
Yeah. Do you know what we do? Reverse the roles. We're talking about snatching these guys from their bomb-making facility and whisking them to Abu Ghraib and pouring water on their face. What happens to me and my friends when we're captured? Are we waterboarded?
No.
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 Now, I'm not saying that what they do to us makes what we do to them right. What I'm saying is...
it's better. I'm saying it. It's better. I mean, that's what I was saying before. If it is torture, if you want to use the word torture like we'd use the words drugs, right? Drugs are coffee and it's also heroin, right? They're all drugs. Caffeine is a drug, right?
Yeah.
Torture, if you're just going to say torture, I'll take that torture every day.
If that's what that is.
Yeah, because even if it sucks.
Yeah, I'm going to be burnt alive. I'm going to be slowly, carefully, methodically, painfully murdered.
Yeah.
And that's my only option. There is never any other option if I got captured.
There's no moral equivalency. I think we could both agree. There's no, I mean, between us and them, there's not. But here's the thing. McCain himself said that she shouldn't be appointed because she willingly participated in torture. He said that.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I respect his opinion. The things that he has done, whether we agree on things is irrelevant. His resume speaks for itself.
I agree.
And I think very few people could speak to torture better than him.
I agree with that as well.
So him coming from that position and saying that she isn't eligible to serve is a very powerful statement. I also feel that I'm pretty intimately familiar with torture and that I understand the full spectrum of what somebody can do selflessly for their country and selfishly for their own satisfaction as a psychopath. Like Zarqawi's enforcer that would go around and kill people in front of their own family members and had carried around a battery-powered drill. And like I saw that. We tracked him. So I also know that when she was doing all of these things for her whole entire career, you have to look at the context of the time and what was happening. And when she did every single one of those things, they were authorized techniques. They were encouraged. They were successful in some degrees, to some degree. And so she was trying to do the best that she could in some cases, limitations that she had. And I think that is a trait that I want in somebody leading the CIA. That is that they're going to do the best that they can with what they have and what they're allowed to do. And I like that.
Yeah,
I'm also a bulldog. I realize that.
But this isn't someone who's talking about this in the comfort of a boardroom. This is someone who's dealing with it in a time of war, and you're dealing with some of the most horrible people that we've ever experienced that are making these videos of cutting journalists' heads off and sending them to their families.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really what we were experiencing when people were deciding to use these enhanced interrogation techniques, this is what they were up against. This isn't something that you can discuss in a classroom and get a full sense of the tone and what was happening in these people's lives.
9/11 was the tip of the iceberg. When that happened, there were hundreds of other plans to do similar things with that one was just successful. They had been trying others, and they have tried others since. Whether it's a shoe bomb, whether it's a Paris train, whether it's a San Bernardino bombing, whether it's a garbage truck in France, or London Bridge. It's they have consistently been trying to do that and duplicate and replicate that. The reason that it hasn't happened again to that scale, to that level, is because of the uncompromising selflessness of heroes trying to protect Americans. Now, I don't want to go into what is the greater good. Okay, are we losing morality? I mean, that's a rabbit hole that we could talk about forever. Yeah. But man, I just want to preserve life.
Why do you think that concept is so hard for people to grasp?
Because it's scary.
Well, not just that, but the concept that the reason why this hasn't happened more often is because of these people doing the hard work. Why is that so hard for people to understand?
They can't even understand hard work. I just made a goddamn TV show just so they could see for the first time that people work hard so they can have food, and they work hard so they can have oil, and they can have power. Like people, man, look at a post. When I don't have a shirt on, everybody says, man, Tim's loving being off USADA. I've looked the same since I was 19 years old. I have looked exactly like this with the same 8-pack, with the same muscle definition since I was an 18-year-old kid. I don't even know how many times I've been tested from the military for USADA to different events. I've been clean my whole entire career, but nobody can, in their mind, they can't understand to get from here to there is hard work. No, there has to be an easier way. It has to be steroids, or it has to be this, or it has to be that. It's the same way. They're protected and they're safe, but they can't grasp the idea of the hard work that it took to keep them there.
I don't even